Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Streamlit Quarterly Showcase. And I'm super excited to be hosting this today. And so before we begin, let's get to know each other. So first question is, where are you streaming from? Please drop your answer in the chat section. And the second question is, what other Python libraries are you using together with Streamlit? Well, for me, I'm hosting this from Orange County in the west coast of the US. And some of my favorite Python libraries include NumPy for numerical processing, Pandas for data wrangling, Altair, Matplotlib, Plotly for data visualization, scikit-learn for machine learning model building, Replicate, OpenAI, Anthropic for large language model apps. So drop your answer in the chat section. Let's see. Some of you are, oh, wow, from all around the world, from Denver, from SF, from the Bay Area, from Chile, Coal Valley, from Boston, from Zambia, Brazil, Sarasota, Berlin, Germany. Also from Bay Area. Hey, Anna. Hyderabad, India. Okay, Dev say love Altair. Yeah, that's like one of my favorite for data viz. Brazil, India, from Maine, Seaborn Matplotlib, Pandas. Yeah, that's a very good data science stack. We have from Sacramento. Alrighty. Well, all right. So I think we're ready to get started now. And I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. My name is Chanin Nantat Senamad, Senior Developer Advocate at Streamlit. Many of you may know me as the Data Professor from my YouTube channel. I'm super excited to be your MC today. We do these events every quarter, so you have a chance to hang out with the product team and also to learn about Streamlit's latest features, and also see some pretty cool apps from the community that extends what's possible with AI. So before we start, here's a disclaimer. Well, let's also take care of some quick housekeeping. We're going to have 3 swag drops at the end of the showcase, so stick around to find out if you won. Eligibility rules will be shared with the winners. This is your chance to talk to the product team. If you have any questions, please do so ask in the chat. Although we won't have time for a live Q&A, we are on deck to answer your questions live as they come in. This live stream is being recorded to watch on YouTube. We also got a packed agenda today, so let's begin. First, our co-founder, Thiago, will kick things off by sharing how we make design decisions at Streamlit. Johannes and Joshua, product managers for Streamlit Open Source, will share what's new on the roadmap. Abhi, senior product manager at Snowflake, will take some time to talk about some of the path to parity and also new ways to get started using Streamlit in Snowflake. Then we'll also get into 3 unique ways to extend the possibilities of using AI and Streamlit. Josh will talk about how you can gain transparency into your AI apps using TruLens. Pierre will share how he and his data science team at Roquette has built a secure GenAI apps to support over 10,000 employees. And finally, Ágúst from 12 Football will show a highly interactive app that combines large language models and data science for more impactful data storytelling. So, without further ado, please welcome Thiago, co-founder of Streamlit.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, so I'm Thiago. I'm a product director at Snowflake and co-founder at Streamlit. And I love visualization, so I pasted a nice little one for you to see there on the screen. And if you want to see it more, you can find me on the web, and it's on my website. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about how we designed Streamlit. And this is really a story about how we started Streamlit and what we learned. And so the way we did this was we talked to different data science teams at different big name companies, and what we saw was pretty crazy. And so, for example, some companies were copy pasting screenshots of charts and analyses into Google Docs, and that's how they shared data. And this means that every time somebody asked, what happens if you change this parameter from 0.7 to 0.8, you had to rerun your analysis. Or every quarter, the finance team would go and ask you to rerun your analysis so you could so they can do their reports again. And so more work for you. And so now you're just pulling requests from a queue and rerunning your code all the time. And you're wondering, how can I spend time doing things that matter and producing new analyses? That's why they hired you. So our first principle that we learned here was that data wants to be interactive. So the end users themselves need to be able to touch it, turn it around, look at the other side of the data. And that's how it becomes really effective. Now, there were some companies who were wiser and they didn't do any of this copy pasting. And instead, they just realized, I need a data app. So they would task you to go build that. And you'd go and start from a Jupyter notebook, convert it to a Python script, learn about building a data app. So you discover Flask, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and then you refactor your code into routes, callbacks. And after a week, it had like this fairly poorly built site that didn't look that great and nobody wanted to touch the code. And you hated the whole thing, every step of the way. So you're not a backend engineer, front-end engineer, designer. That's not what you signed up for. You wanted to be a data scientist, data analyst, machine learning engineer. So how do we get you to do what you really should be doing? Well, that's where principle number 2 comes out of. We need to make sure that people focus on their analysis and storytelling, and they can tune out everything else. So there were some other companies who were enlightened and they thought they had the solution. And the solution was the data scientists shouldn't be building the app. It should be the tools team. So the tools team that had a whole process, and this process was really long. You first file a request, wait, they collect requirements, they get approvals, get a designer to make mock-ups. That was a really long process. And in the end, months later, you'd get an app and it looked great. But that was pretty skin deep. So when people actually use the app, you'd realize that it's actually missing some important stuff. So you'd file a new request and start from the top. And so now you got to wait a few more months, which means your app is constantly in a bad state, that nobody is quite using it. So principle number 3, we need this tight iteration loop. It can't be this long. It has to be really like hours. So what do we do with these principles and how do we use them? These principles are basically things that we don't want to change often. We change our ideas, change our minds often, but the principles stay. So let's see some examples. Principle number 1, data wants to be interactive. Well, if that's true, then that means interactivity needs to be insanely easy. And in fact, it should be a line of code. We had this idea early on that we didn't want any event loops or callbacks. It should be basically you write as if you were declaring your variable. So do number equals 1, 2, 3, or if you want to do it in Streamlit, number equals st.slider. So this whole no callbacks thing was an important thing for us. But then we were designing session state and we realized you'd get off by 1 error if you didn't introduce callbacks. And we thought about it for a while, tried different designs, but then we decided, let's do this. No callbacks wasn't a principle. It was just an idea we had. The principle was still data wants to be interactive. So we did introduce callbacks, but we kept it true to the principle. We made it so it's not required. You start without it. Over time, you can add it. So your app grows with you. Then there was principle number 2. So if you are to focus on your analysis, then you really shouldn't be thinking about things like what should this route be called, or which design system should I install, what should the padding for this thing be. So instead, you should really just code like you would a simple Python script, and Streamlit should do the rest. So to pick an example that is near and dear to our community is customization. So we don't want our users to write scwrite and then put CSS equals border, blah, 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 line height, blah, blah, blah. Instead, we want you to tell us what you want to do, and we'll do it the proper way for you without you having to go and tweak CSS for hours, read documentation. You should be focusing on your analysis. So here's an example. So instead of absolutely positioning a div on the top left of the screen and then figuring out how to put an image in there and place it just right, just tell us you want a logo. And then we place it there, we make it react to the sidebar, we make it link to the right places. It just works. That's how we see things. So this is an area where we have a long way to go. A lot of things that we've done in the past were meant to improve these things that people were doing with CSS. But there's a lot more to do. So you'll hear more about this today even. And then there's principle number 3, a tight iteration loop is key. So, going back to those companies that have a tools team, one thing we would hear often is that there's a tools team, it's building an app, but this is taking a long time. So an intern comes in, discovers Streamlit, and the next day they have a tiny app that does, say, 1% of what the team needs. But then the team starts using it and providing feedback and iterating. And then suddenly a week later, the CEO is using the app and everybody just drops the tools team app, which never shipped, and they just decide to stick with the interns. And that's because an app now is better than a complex app 3 months from now. And this iterative building process will lead to something that you never imagined. It will just be, it's much harder to premeditate what an app should be. And this way you just get there day by day. So all you need to do is get started. So we say, just build it. That's how we think about Streamlit. And how well is this whole thing working, this ideology we got? So let's see. Well, our community is growing quite a bit, and that's because of you. We have 300,000 people using Streamlit every month. So this is people building apps. We have 8 million Streamlit app views every month, 330 custom components. So this is all community built custom components. We love our community. This is easily the best part of our job. Well, next up, let me stop here. Our product managers will talk about some things we're doing as we put this theory into practice. So I'm going to hand it over to Johannes. Thanks.
Thanks, Thiago. Hey, everyone. I'm Johannes. I'm a product manager on the Streamlit open source team. And I'll show you a little bit of what we're currently doing with interactivity and customization. So first thing I want to show you is advanced interactivity. So that's one of the big themes we've been working on at Streamlit this year. We've recently released chart and data frame selections. I'll show you a quick preview of what this is in case you haven't seen it. So chart selections, if you have a Plotly chart in your Streamlit app, what you can do now is make it interactive. And so users can click on a data point in the chart. And on the Python side, you get back the info about which data point was selected. Or you can also let the user select an area of the chart and get information back about all the data points that were selected and about that area. So both of these things, chart selections for Plotly, LT, and Vigolite, as well as data frame selections for rows and for columns, were released in 1.35 2 months ago. And yeah, we're super excited to see these features being used in more and more apps. They are very cool to build new data exploration, data analysis apps. And yeah, if you have some cool apps where you use this feature, or you have some feedback, some feature requests, please let us know in the chat, and then we'll look into it. One thing in addition to that we're currently prototyping is map selection. So for all of our amazing geospatial fans in the community, We also want to make maps interactive and bring selections to it, so that if you show some data points in a map or a PyDeck chart, you can click on them, and same as for charts and data frames, get back the data about which point was selected on the Python side. This currently in prototyping, or we're starting prototyping right now, so no promises yet. We'll also need to see what we can do with the underlying library. But yeah, that's something we're working on to make Streamlit even more interactive. Next area I want to talk about is visual customization. That's an area we always get lots of feedback from all of you about, lots of feature requests that you want to customize your apps more. We heard that. We want to let you do more customization, but at the same time, we also want to make sure Streamlit stays beautiful out of the box. It's very simple to use. So yeah, it's a complicated problem, but we're working on it so that ideally you can customize the things you want to, but you don't have to go hardcore into CSS and HTML. So one big feature we launched recently in this area is ST Dialog. That has been experimental for a few months now, and we just recently took it out of experimental, so you can now use it everywhere. And this lets you open a modal dialog on top of your app. I'll show that on the next slide in the demo there. But yeah, this is a super cool feature that was very highly requested, so we're glad we finally have it. Another smaller feature, but one that is very important in my eyes, is vertical alignment for ST columns. So this launched recently in 136, and the problem is before, if you put contents like these widgets here in ST column, they were always aligned at the top. So that made it very hard to build some widget toolbars like this one. Now you can also align elements at the bottom or in the center, and this makes it much easier to build something like this. Or also if you have images, charts, data frames that you want to align in ST columns, this feature is going to make all of this much, much easier. So yeah, if you haven't tried it yet, please check it out. And one bigger thing we're starting to work on right now, that's in prototyping, is advanced theming. So we're obviously thinking about where should visual customization go, what is the next step. And one pain point we often see and we hear from you about is that you want to change the design system of Streamlit to adapt it to a different design system, for example, because your company has a specific design system, has specific colors, has a specific font, and you want to make Streamlit look coherent with this design system. And so what we're prototyping right now is having, we already have a few theming parameters that you can set in your config file, for example, the primary color or the background color of your app. We're now looking into expanding that even further so that you can, for example, set a font, set a text color for the sidebar, a text color for links, maybe also customizing the borders that are shown around elements, so that you can, with a simple config file, you can change the look and feel of your Streamlit apps to look the way you want without touching CSS and without having to customize every single element in your app. So again, this is in very early prototyping. We'll let you know once we have more results. But yeah, that's the big thing we're working on right now. And there's obviously also lots of other small visual customization features that we want to do and that we want to work on. And yeah, I'll update on GitHub and in our roadmap app as soon as we have more news and as soon as we launch new features in this area. Cool. And the last area I want to talk about are LLM apps, which is obviously still an exciting area. We're still seeing lots of super cool chat and LLM apps. And one advanced use case that we've seen that is also very prominent in other LLM tools is collecting feedback for chat messages, if a generated chat message was good or bad. And so for this, we just launched ST Feedback in 137. This is or we had a very popular custom component that did this, but yeah, we also wanted to have it as a built-in feature so it's easier to use and looks more coherent. So what you can do is use ST feedback to show some sums in the app, for example, and then the user can click them and you get the value back and can use that internally to store some feedback about the chat messages. You can also show these emoji faces or stars as well. And one cool thing that I want to show is this is just a normal widget. It's just a basic component like everything else in Streamlit. So you can also use this to build more advanced things. In this example, for example, we have a star rating widget. And if I click on it, it opens up ST dialog, what I showed on the slide before. And I can give some more advanced feedback. Cool. So this is already launched, and one thing we're prototyping and want to launch soon for LLM apps is file upload for chat. So this is for all of these amazing multimodal LLM apps that let you upload a file, upload an image, and process that. We want to have this native and built in and make it a really nice and smooth experience. So that's something we're looking into soon. And with that, I'll hand it off to Josh.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joshua. I'm a product manager on Streamlit, and I'm here to give an update about production-ready workflows and talk about some of the things that we've recently shipped and some of the things that are coming up. So as folks may know, in the last few releases, we've launched a bunch of new features that make it way better and easier to build production-ready apps and workflows on Streamlit. Some of the things that I wanted to highlight and talk through a little bit today are some of the new multi-page app features that we've launched, specifically ST Navigation and ST Page, as well as ST Logo and some of the material icon support that we've launched. I'm going to talk through as well a couple of tips and tricks on using the new ST Navigation and ST Page and some of my favorite things you can do. We also just launched ST Fragment, de-experimentalized last week, and also support for ST Rerun within a fragment, which is great, and fix some bugs and quality issues based on the great feedback during the experimental. And I'll show a couple of examples of that. We also just launched ST Context, which I'll share about, and also some great updates from partners on help with deploying Streamlit apps to AWS and Azure, which I know that a lot of folks are interested in. So let's jump in. So I'm not going to retread all of the information about the multi-page app v2 support with ST Navigation and ST Page, because there's been a huge amount of support from the community and a ton of tutorial videos and content and things that have launched. You can also find a lot of great walkthroughs in the Streamlit docs about this. But just in case you missed it, we launched this ST Navigation option along with the ability to define pages in apps that lets you define by API the page layout of your application. And you can see here, this also supports one layer of nesting. You can customize the title and logo separately from how the page content is defined. You can also reference pages by functions, etc. So this has been great. The response has been super positive, but let's talk through just a couple of kind of advanced things that you can do with this new capability, and particularly with the ability to use the entry point file that you call with Streamlit Run to do kind of a few more advanced things. So I've got a very simple app here that's using a couple of these things that I just wanted to show off on this tips and tricks app. So I'll just jump into the app code and we can look at it there. So with this app, the first thing that I wanted to highlight that's a cool tip is you can actually use the page object that's returned by ST Navigation and a few properties that are on that to actually customize the page a little bit further. So I've taken set page config here, and actually I'm customizing the page title by adding a prefix to the one that's provided with the ST page. So you can see that in the app here. Actually, it's a little bit hard to see, but I've got my app page one instead of just the page one. The second thing that I've done here is if I want to set the layout to be wide only on certain pages, I can use the page URL path or title to set that, or with centered. So when I go to the second page of my app, you can see it will go to a wide layout, whereas the first page is centered. So that's pretty cool, setting kind of custom configuration or other properties based on the selected page. Another cool trick with ST navigation is the ability to set custom styling or other attributes, honestly, that go across all pages. So for this app, because the app runs really fast, I found that the running man at the top right of Streamlit is a little bit distracting. So I've added a style that will actually hide that. And since I'm applying it in the main page, the main file of the app, that's being applied across all the pages. So you can look, typically it would be here, but it's being hidden, and you can see as I'm clicking through and these pages are loading, that's not running. The last trick that I wanted to highlight is custom error handling and the ability to wrap all the page execution in a try except. So I've built a little bit of custom logic here. So that's being applied to all of these pages. So I'm not having to add it in each specific page. And when I want to throw an error, you're probably familiar with the lengthy kind of typical error traceback and everything that Streamlit provides. But I've actually built a little bit of custom error handling on this app, which I've applied here. So now when I throw an error, instead of that, I get a nice user-friendly message and a cat GIF, everyone's favorite thing when they see an error on the internet. So those are just a couple of tips. Hope that's helpful. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is ST Fragment. As I mentioned, we just de-experimentalized ST Fragment in 1.37, and the community response to experimental fragment has been awesome. We've seen a lot of cool applications. I'm just going to highlight two that I think are really typical of some of the things that you can build. So this is an app that was built by someone at Confluent who provide tooling and services around Apache Kafka, which is a high-scale streaming platform. And they built this app that actually is reading from a streaming Kafka topic and updating a live dashboard. So you can see the app running here, an example of it, where it has new geotags that are showing up on this map that's being updated in real time. It's also updating this chart kind of in real time as those things are streaming in from a Kafka topic. And you can see that these updates are happening very quickly in the app. While the app is staying fully responsive, you can go around and click and change and do all these things. And they're using ST Fragment to do that. So I thought this was just a really awesome use case for a high-performance real-time application built in Streamlit. One other example that I thought was really cool actually came from a talk at PyCon London last month, where Harriet had built this Streamlit RQ library and a scheduler using Redis queues for doing concurrency and async in Streamlit. And with this package, she also is using fragments within the Streamlit RQ package to do live updates and check when tasks had finished. So making it a little bit easier to build async into Streamlit, which is another common community request. So love these. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with fragments that was harder to do before in Streamlit, and it's been really cool to see what people have built. The last thing that I wanted to show, or the third thing that I wanted to show, rather, the last new feature of Streamlit that's launched is ST Context, which also just launched in 1.37. And this is something that we want to build more on over time. But the first thing that we've launched with ST Context is a built-in, fully supported way to expose headers and cookies in your app. And this is a read-only interface, so you're not able to set headers or cookies with this. But we know that it's very common for folks to use headers from a reverse proxy or some cookie that they've set for things like authentication or user identity. And there's been an unsupported API for this for quite a while that a lot of folks use. But we wanted to bring it natively into the API, and we've gotten this request quite frequently. So this is now available in ST Context today. It's got sort of a nice dictionary-like API, similar to other things in Streamlit. That makes it really easy to just grab these properties from ST Context. And as you can see, the output here, when you do that for headers on my app, it's got a bunch of headers that you can extract by key value. It is also case insensitive, so you don't have to worry about that for your headers. So we're excited about this. It's a small thing, but something that a lot of folks have requested. And we also think that ST Context is going to be a really cool way to build other things about information about the user session or other context that might be useful in your app. So we're really excited about that. And then I also wanted to just highlight something from the community on the deployment front. So we get a lot of questions about how to best deploy and manage Streamlit apps in cloud on cloud providers. And I know that Azure and AWS are two of the most commonly used ones. And there have been a couple of great resources that have come out recently about this. So I just wanted to highlight those. One came out from Hinkel, which is a German company that uses Streamlit heavily. And they shared about how they deploy Streamlit on Azure. and have a great kind of architectural layout and some specific walkthrough about putting your app on Azure Container Registry, setting up authentication, doing a lot of these things, as well as some common pitfalls. So I thought this was a great resource for anyone in Azure. Similarly, on AWS, a team at AWS put together these GenAI quick starts that are all using Amazon Bedrock, the generative AI platform in Amazon, and have, I think, like 30 examples of different Streamlit apps for different use cases with this deploying on AWS. So I thought this was a really awesome resource that I wanted to highlight. And then if you really want to dive deep on deploying Streamlit apps on AWS, there's a great blueprint repo here on deploying Streamlit apps on ECS on AWS that really kind of has all of the CloudFront code and architecture and everything and how you might do this. I think this includes CI/CD and some more complex stuff. I think the actual app deployment is fairly straightforward, but it kind of talks you through it and has examples. So I thought that was really great. And then, yeah, there was one other thing that I wanted to highlight. It's been a huge request from the community. So I just wanted to share an update about authentication and user identity with STUser. And yeah, I actually have a prototype that I wanted to share with you where we have this working. So I'm running this with ngrok, which folks may be familiar with. So it's running locally on my machine. But I have this login, so you can see the app code here, where I've just got a button. I'm able to call stexperimentaluser.login. And when I do that, hopefully my live demo will work here. It'll take me to Google, and I can do my login. And when it brings me back to the app, you can see that it has added my email in STUser. And similarly, I can use logout to clear it. So just wanted to give an update on that prototype. We know this has been a heavily demanded feature, and just to also show kind of what the config looks like. This is configured very straightforwardly in Streamlit secrets.toml, where I'm just setting the redirect URI. We'll probably abstract this part, but you do have to, in this case, we're setting the metadata URL for OpenID Connect, and then just the client ID and secret. And that's it. There's no other code wrapper stuff that I'm having to write for this. So thought that was really cool and exciting. Wanted to share the update, and hopefully we're working hard on this to be able to launch it in Streamlit soon. And yeah, as we always like to do on these showcases, just wanted to also ask you about, what are really some of the things that you're having a hard time with lately? We've given some updates around CSS styling and auth, which I know are two of the things that have come up quite a lot. And we're really kind of starting to think about, what are some of the next big things that we want to work on the next few quarters and into next year. And so we'd really love to get your feedback, whether that's things about integrating with other web applications and webhooks and things like that more easily, debuggability. There's a lot of different things that we're thinking about, improving custom components. So we would really love to hear from you about what you're most interested in us investing in. And that's what I have to share. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joshua. These improvements to the open source roadmap have been in high demand for a while. And we're so glad to share the progress that we've made. As Joshua mentioned, we rely heavily on your feedback, so please share your thoughts on the link in the chat. Next up, let's hear a bit more about Streamlit and Snowflake. As many of you may already know, Streamlit was acquired by Snowflake over 2 years ago. Abhi is here to talk about the latest improvements to that native integration.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abhi, and I'm a product manager at Snowflake. I focus on Streamlit and Snowflake, which is a fully managed platform for building, deploying, and sharing Streamlit applications. Today, I'm super excited to tell you about some enterprise use cases and what's new in the Streamlit and Snowflake platform. So since the beginning of Streamlit, data teams have been the first teams to adopt Streamlit. They've been building workflow monitoring tools, CRUD operation tools, and tools that can read from Snowflake and write data back to Snowflake. And more recently, with the advent of GenAI, they've been building chat-based applications, RAG applications, and so on. And it all starts with an idea. So someone on the data team builds their first app once they have an idea. They try out the app a few times, and generally they're tinkering with the app. From there, they go to an MVP, and then they start sharing this app. And once they share it, it picks up, and suddenly hundreds of users are now using this. So in production, these apps have hundreds of users, and they can use CI/CD to deploy this app. And with Snowflake's scalable infrastructure, they can also horizontally and vertically scale to meet this new load in production. And it's not just the data teams that are using Streamlit, but we're also seeing usage of Streamlit go beyond to teams in IT, finance, marketing, operations. And we're seeing use cases like BI dashboards, customer analytics, supply chain, and financial modeling and analysis. And it's also transcending industries now. And our customers in healthcare, manufacturing, financial services are all adopting Streamlit. And all of these customers need some kind of tool to do data entry, to interact with their data, geospatial apps, or just build any kind of internal tooling. And all of what I just showed is also available in our public GitHub repo. So all these use cases are there as individual folders where you can find the code for the app, as well as the sample data to get started. Next, let's talk about what's new. So I'm super excited to announce that we'll soon start supporting 1.35 in Snowflake. With 1.35, developers can do data frame selections, they can use ST logo in their apps, do popovers and experimental dialogue, and more. And going forward, our plan is to support the latest and greatest Streamlit library within 2 to 3 weeks of it landing in the open source. So these libraries, as soon as they go out, will be available in Snowflake within 2 to 3 weeks. In terms of customization, custom UI is also now in public preview. So app builders can now use HTML, custom HTML in their apps and change their app color or add a sidebar, add a top bar, and make the app reflect their own branding. And with Snowflake Cortex, it's now even easier to build any kind of chat-based applications or applications that need access to an LLM. With Snowflake Cortex, our app builders can leverage models like the Llama series of models, Mistral, and more. And using these models is as easy as importing a complete statement from the Snowflake Cortex library. And not just the internally hosted open source models, but developers can now also use direct external access to connect to OpenAI or any of the externally hosted models as well, all with the full governance built into Snowflake. Finally, I want to do a demo of how CI/CD works with Streamlit and Snowflake. And I'm going to be doing this demo using GitHub Actions. And let's say that I'm an app builder and I'm building my app locally on my laptop. I can use the Snowflake CLI to take what I've built, let's say in my dev branch, and push it to my dev app. But then I can also set up a GitHub action to push to my branch and then have the GitHub action then push to Snowflake. And then the production app is the one that is used by end users. So let's see this demo in action. So I'm going to go to my shell, and here I can see my app. And additionally, I have some configuration files for my Snowflake CLI. So let's look at what's inside this file. So this shows that I'm using, this is my account identifier, this is my user role and database and schema. And then I can also look at the other configuration file, which defines the name of the app and where it's located and the corresponding libraries that it needs. So this is my app. And then let's also look at Snowflake. So this is the current state of my app. And this is inside Snowflake. Here's what it looks like. And this is my GitHub repo where I've also configured my GitHub action to deploy this. So now let's go back to my shell, and I'm going to edit my app. And let's change the title to something else. So we'll say key metrics quarterly demo Streamlit. And I will save this change. And now I can see that I've changed my file. So let's add this file and let's do a commit. Change title quarterly demo. And then let's push this to GitHub. So I just did the push. And if I go back to my GitHub, I can see this change that was recently pushed. And I can also see that in GitHub Actions, this is being built. So as soon as this is built, it will automatically deploy this change to Snowflake. Let's also take a look at what's happening here. So it's installing Snowflake CLI, and then it'll run the deploy command and push my app to Snowflake. So now let's go back. Let's go back here and take a look at our apps. And here we can just see that this was just updated now. And when I open this app, I should see the new title here. So this corresponds to the change that I had just done. This change is also complete. And now if I go back to my app, I can also see the updated title. So that was a quick demo of how CI/CD works inside Streamlit and Snowflake. And next, I want to talk about what's coming up on our roadmap. So we continue to evolve and make the Streamlit and Snowflake platform better for our users and customers. And we're making investments in improving the developer experience, in improving open source parity, and of course, also making platform improvements. So this includes things like version control, doing faster library upgrades, supporting custom components, and adding private link support as well. That's all for me today. And once again, please check out our GitHub repos for some easy and ready to use examples to get started.
Thank you, Abhi, Joshua, and Johannes. We're bursting with new features, and we can't wait to share them all. Our to-do list is overflowing, but our enthusiasm is even greater. We take your feedback to heart as we define the Streamlit roadmap. Check out the latest issues to vote or comment on what's most important to you. This feedback, coupled with the design principles that Thiago shared, is what guides us to prioritize what's coming. Bookmark this app so that you can see what's on the horizon. Let's hear from the community on how they extend Streamlit's capabilities to inspire your own apps. Streamlit is your go-to UI for anything AI, but it doesn't have to be a mystery. There's a lot to unpack here, so please ask questions of our speakers in the chat. So first up, let's hear from Josh to hear how you can gain trust in your AI with TruLens Observability.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm a developer advocate and maintainer of TruLens. TruLens is an evaluation and tracing tool for LLM applications. TruLens solves the core problem of understanding the internals of your app and provides feedback functions to run automatically against the entire app trace. That way, you can trust each response the LLM gives you. And this makes it easy to iterate and improve your app and get it ready for your users. It's really great to see the new capabilities Streamlit offers for recording manual feedback. In many cases, however, only a small set of user interactions receive that feedback, so we need a way to evaluate the rest. Binary feedback also doesn't give us many ways to improve the application. With only thumbs up and thumbs down, we don't really know if it was the generation, the retriever, or something else that went wrong. And that's where TruLens comes in. Our approach, particularly with the RAG triad, has become the standard way of evaluating LLM apps. It doesn't stop there, though. TruLens offers a huge library of feedback functions, to choose from when evaluating your application. This lets you evaluate the application responses to understand if they're accurate and honest, things like answer relevance, context relevance, groundedness, summarization quality. If they're harmless, such as if they're leaking PII, if they're responding in toxic ways, or if they're susceptible to jailbreaks. And if they're helpful, if they're responding in this right sentiment, language, and style that you want your application to respond with. So let me stop sharing and jump into the code so you can see this in action. Great. So here you see a simple Streamlit application. This application is a chat app where we can ask questions about the Streamlit documentation. The application is going to search the Streamlit docs, respond with some relevant information from those documentation, and then use that to power a response back to the user, me. So here you see this running on the right, and I've asked a question: how do I launch a Streamlit application? Once I've asked this question, you also see the response below. This gives me step-by-step instructions to install Streamlit, but I don't really have a view of how accurate this response really is. That's where TruLens comes in. If we go back to our code, we can add a few simple lines to understand the accuracy of this exact response directly in our chat application. Here you see I've added a simple import from TruLens eval, import Streamlit as TruLens ST. And then I've also added, once the text is submitted, this TruLens st.TruLens feedback, which is going to display the feedback results of that TruLens record. Now, if I go to the Streamlit app, we see the same query: how do I launch a Streamlit application? Along with the step-by-step instructions on how to do so, the response from the LLM. But now that we've added the TruLens feedback, we can now see the feedback function results for this response. Here we see the response has a high answer relevance score and context relevance score, indicating that it's relatively good. But when we click on and look at the groundedness, you see that's relatively low. And to understand more, we can examine and see exactly the statement that the LLM is making and the source text from the Streamlit docs that it's pulling that from, along with the score of groundedness. And what this is really telling us is that on a 0 to 1 scale, this LLM response is supported by evidence on about a 0.6. So there's room for improvement here. In addition to the feedback results, you can also see we've added, going back into the code, we've added this TruLens st.TruLens trace. And what this does is actually allows us to see the application and how it's actually making and arriving at its response, tracing its view across all of the different calls it makes it inside the application. In other words, the internals. So if we go back to the dashboard over here on the right, we can see that exactly. So here you see the nested tree view where we have our RAG application, and we have this query function. And then inside that query function, we have both the retrieve context, the search or retrieval part of our RAG, along with the generation step, generate completion. We can even click on any of these and exactly see what goes on in that function. When we want to zoom out and understand more about our application across all of the different runs with the app, we can launch the TruLens dashboard. So now I'm opening the TruLens dashboard, and you'll see a lot of the familiar results we just looked at. We can see the feedback results and the trace view. But more than that, we can see that for all of the different runs that the application has gone with. So all of the different queries that somebody has asked are a particular version of the application. And if we scroll up, we can see all of those different versions. So here We can see each time the user asks a question, we get evaluations for that question, intermediate steps, and response. And to zoom out even further, we can even see the aggregate results for our application. So we can understand at a high level how the application is performing. So as I just showed, you can easily add TruLens observability to your Streamlit app with just a few lines of code. You can follow along in the step-by-step quick start linked here. That way, you can understand the performance of AI in your app and quickly iterate so it can be trusted by your users.
Thank you, Josh. It's quite refreshing to see how easy it is for developers to create credible and powerful large language model apps, even faster with Streamlit and TruLens. All right, now that we've addressed trust and transparency, let's talk about scale and security. Next up, we have Pierre-Louis Besson, who will be sharing his team's app, RoqueGPT.
Hi, everyone, and greetings from France. My name is Pierre-Louis, and I'm the head of data and advanced analytics at Roquette. I guess that many of you don't know us, but our company has existed for almost a century now, and our mission is to unlock the power of nature. What does it mean? It means that we extract natural-based ingredients from raw materials such as corn, wheat, peas, and potatoes to serve highly demanding markets like nutrition or pharma companies. We have more than 10,000 employees worldwide with location across the globe. I'm leading a team of 20 data experts, meaning data engineers, data scientists, data analysts. And every day we are developing application solutions that leverage data, machine learning, artificial intelligence for all company function. Now, I'd like to tell you the story of RoqueGPT, our in-house alternative to ChatGPT. This story begins in 2023. When we were starting to monitor the usage of ChatGPT internally. What we saw is that hundreds of employees were going on ChatGPT every day. And for us, it was a concern from a confidentiality point of view. So our objective was to develop a safe and secure alternative to ChatGPT, and a solution that was able to scale, depending on the workload and the number of employees who were connected to the solution. So we leverage Azure solution because most of our stack is relying on Azure. And for the front end, we decided to use Streamlit. And I will be happy to offer you a guided tour of our solution so that you can see how it looks for all employees at Roquette. So now let's switch to RoqueGPT. Here we go. So as you can see, it looks like a standard chat, but we've added a few components that I will be happy to show to you. So first, you can ask some standard question like, could you describe Streamlit? And you see that you will get exactly the same answer as a typical chat that you could be developing in Streamlit. But we've decided to add a few other components to make the experience more enjoyable. For example, I can clear the chat, and thanks to that, I can, go back to the conversation. I can also load a previous chat. So, for example, before I had maybe, made a conversation about Snowflake, and I can get, the past conversation I had. Maybe I would like to see what would be the answer with another model. So it's easy for me to just, for example, use the GPT-4o model and ask to regenerate the last answer. And in the same way, I will get, something different depending on the model I am using. And that was one of the first developments we've made with this application. But our employees told us that it would be really great if they were able, for example, to load some document and get some relevant answers, being able to query the document. So we are leveraging, one of the new components of Streamlit, the experiment dialogue, to be able to upload documents. As you can see here, I'm going to browse the file, get something really interesting, but also a bit boring regarding Snowflake and GXP workload, which is some, let's say, constraint related to the pharma industry. And I can just double click on the document is uploaded, and now I can ask some questions. What is this document about? And I'm going to get an answer related to the document. And then our employee told us that the thing is that sometimes we are using, scanned documents. So how can we do that? We said, okay, no issue. We got you covered. So I'm going to clear the chat again. And this time I just need to click on this is a scanned document. Had, for example, a scan page of the very same document, and we've added a feature of optical characters recognition so that before being parsed, the document get the recognition of the characters. And then again, what is this page about? And I'm going to get, the corresponding information. So this is really what we wanted to do, to have something that is able to compete with ChatGPT, because we know that otherwise employees could say, okay, your RockGPT application is nice, but not so nice as ChatGPT. Our aim is really to compete with them. So as you can see, this is the core of our application, but we also have some dedicated application. You can see here that we are also leveraging and using the new menu from Streamlit. We added some material icon emojis. That is, I think, giving a right visual because it looks professional, but at the same time, you can use some emojis, having some very colorful emojis sometimes in, I would say, in a professional environment, it could be not well accepted. So we've developed some application, for example, to make translation. There is one application I've loved that I've developed, which is called Shakespeare, where you can put an English text, if like me, for example, you are a French speaker, and you can have some insight on how to make it better, how to beautify the text. And we also have Molière. Molière is exactly the same as Shakespeare. Molière is a famous French author. And you can also, for example, if you are working at Roquette, there are many French employees, and you can get exactly the same. One really cool application we've developed is called TLDR. So you can just browse any file, upload it. Here we're going to upload Alice Adventures in Wonderland, and you will get a summary in 3 paragraphs. So you can see just a sliding bar here, a document upload, and in a few seconds, we will get 3 paragraphs summarizing what this story is about. And this is really a cool feature that we are able to offer to our employees. And then, as you can guess, people love to create some new pictures. So for example, here, let's say I would like to see a cute black puppy, and I would say Labrador. As you can see, my dog is a black Labrador. And here, I'm going to rely on DALL-E from Microsoft to get the generated picture. This will be used, for example, by people from marketing, by people from R&D when they want to get some specific picture and illustration. Oh, yes, it looks really, really cute, so that's fine. Maybe I'm going to download it to look at it at another time. So this is for the guided tour. And maybe now you are wondering, but how many people, how many employees are you really serving? How is the infrastructure behind RockGPT? So let's stop the RockGPT sharing and let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So first, some figures regarding the usage of RockGPT, but just before, a quick summary of what I feel are the nice features that we are leveraging from Streamlit. First of all, as I was mentioning, the experimental dialogue is allowing you to create some pop-ups to upload documents and so on. And I found that this is really a killer feature because it allows you to really lighten and make your design much more simple. Second one is that we've created, this cool chat menu. We have been relying on Streamlit Float, which is a component developed by another member from the community. You will find the link to the open source repositories that I've created so that for example, if you like this design, you can get the code and reproduce it for your own chat. This is also the open source spirit that everybody is enjoying with Streamlit. As I was mentioning, the new menu with material icon, I find it really, really awesome. And the last one that you cannot see behind the scene is that we are also leveraging the cache resource to avoid reloading every time, for example, the credentials from Azure and so on. And I think this is also a good practice. Now, maybe you are wondering, what are the main figures for this application? First of all, you have to know that we are serving, from what we see on the statistics, almost 2,500 users. So really a very large number of users. We are also processing 100 millions of tokens on a monthly basis. If you had to, let's say, look at the equivalent or read the equivalent in terms of pages, it would be 150,000 pages of a PDF document, let's say. And now looking at the scaling effect, you can see that every day of the week, the nodes from our Kubernetes application, are scaling automatically, decreasing during the night, and then doing it again during the day. And as you can see here, you can see also the weekend. You have to know that we go up to 30 Docker instances running in parallel to serve all the employees that we have at Roquette using RAG-GPT. And now, maybe if you want to go a little bit more into the detail, I can share with you how we've designed it internally. First, you have to know that I would say that many data experts are lazy guys like me, So we are relying on Terraform. Terraform is I would say a great way to create infrastructure as a code script, meaning that every time we want to create a new version of RAG-GPT, everything can be, I would say, loaded from scratch. So, for example, Terraform will create all the required resources in Azure, the credentials, the Kubernetes instances, and so on. And if you are not familiar with Kubernetes, Kubernetes is a way to handle multiple Docker nodes at the same time. So, for example, the morning start in France, and our employees start using RAG-GPT. So maybe there will be one instance of RAG-GPT being running. Then maybe some new employees are joining. And so as the workload is increasing, Kubernetes opens some new Docker instances. So it goes like this along the day. And let's imagine, for example, that there is an issue with one instance and one is dead. No issue. Kubernetes is going to open another instance to cope with the workload. And this is really a great way to have this scaling effect and not to have a huge virtual machine being able to handle all the employees at the same time. It's better to have this workload management. Now, how it is built behind the scene. Basically, we've got some Azure OpenAI resource, so where the models are stored. We have a backend with the REST application, and on the front end, so on another Docker instance, we've got the Streamlit front end that has been developed with Python. And thanks to that, we are able to serve our 10,000 employees at scale in a safe and secured way, leveraging Streamlit with what I feel a component and an application and a platform that looks almost as nice as the standard ChatGPT application. So I hope that you like this demo. If you want to get a glimpse and the corresponding code of the nice chat menu that I was displaying, you can go on my GitHub repository. It's really open source. And do not hesitate to get in touch with me if you have any questions. And thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Pierre. We'd love to hear how fast Streamlit apps are built. But to build one with this level of security and scale in a weekend is next level. Next up is Ágúst, data scientist from 12 Football. He and his team have built a highly interactive app that uses AI to unlock traditional data analysis for stakeholders.
Hi all, I'm Ágúst and I'm a data scientist at 12 Football. And I'm happy and honored to be here with you today to talk about a product 12GPT, which we have developed and deployed on Streamlit. The product uses large language models to bridge the gap between data analytics and the stakeholders. Before I dive into the product itself, I just want to give you a brief introduction about us as a company. As the name indicates, 12 Football, we focus on football data analytics. And when I say football, I'm referring to the European version. For the past 5 or 6 years, we've been working with clubs all around the world in projects ranging from small ad hoc questions to larger collaborations. Our main principle has always been that we want to be able to deliver fast solutions that are tailored to the customer needs. And as most of our employers are data scientists that are very familiar with Python, Streamlit was a perfect solution for us to achieve our goals. So what we did historically was just creating pages on top of pages on top of pages on Streamlit that we hosted on a virtual machine for every project that we created. So the pile just got bigger and bigger, and simultaneously, there was a huge development in AI in regards with language and communication. So we thought to ourselves at this time around a year ago that we should really use that to organize our work. So we started picking out the best out of our analysis in our pile and started using the communicative skills of AI to enrich the analytics with language to make them more accessible and understandable to users. And that is in its core what 12GPT is doing. It is making and taking advanced analytics and making them accessible to anyone. So let's just dive into the product. Yes, so I will start focusing on the left here, on the sidebar. So on top here, we have a few analysts, we call them, which determine the context that we're looking into. There is scout players and find players, which has to do with scouting. And then there are 3 other analysts, match, league, and season, which focus on teams at different aspects, on a match level, on a season level, and comparing leagues to each other. But if we just start with the scouting portion, when you go in there, you get select boxes to filter what player you're interested in. You can select the gender, the countries. So we have over 600 leagues here. So there are many countries and many leagues under each country. You can select the season, position, and so on until you get to the player. So you can select a player of interest. We can take Andreas Pereira. And what pops up there are 2 visuals that depict more or less the same thing. Let's just focus on the left one for now. We call that a distribution plot. What it shows here is how players perform compared to other players in the same position that are playing in the league. And we plot up here every player represented in a green dot. When you hover over it, you can see the name of the player and how he ranks compared to the others. And the one that we have selected is the white one, Andreas Pereira. You can see that in terms of involvement, he ranks number 113 out of 144 in the league. The same you can see with different qualities here. So this is the traditional way of how we've done analytics. But in the past year, we have added text to enrich the analysis. So here we summarize the visuals to get people to really grasp what they are showing, but also give us opportunity to add in some more detail. Lastly, we have a chat, which allows you asking questions. You can ask, for example, can he play in La Liga? So if you're a scout in the Spanish La Liga, and you want to know if the player is able to perform there, you get an answer. that he could fit well in there as it's slightly easier to perform, blah, 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 blah. And it ends by saying that if you want to look into more detail, you can go in the tab above called Predict Transfer. So we can do that. So you can see here, there are many options. If we go into the Predict Transfer one, we go to a different page, which allows you to transfer to leagues. So here is a drop-down menu again. We could go to La Liga if we're interested, but let's just stick to the championship for now. So here we show the same visuals again, but we focus on how he would perform in the new league. So the yellow is after the transfer, the white one is before. So you can see that he would be better in the championship, which is natural since it's the lower tier in England. That's enough for the scouting part. We can dig a bit into the other ones. So if we check into a match analyst, at this level, we are again, you can see on the left, you can select a league, but now you select a match since we are looking into how a team performs in a game. Firstly, we get a distribution plot again, which gives a summary of how the team performed in the game, as well as some visual which describes how the game went. This is a momentum plot, and it really shows that it usually is like up and down, but Arsenal in this case really dominated the game, so it doesn't really depict it. But when you select different qualities, you can see different visuals, different kind of analytics. So if you go to attacking transitions, again, we stick to the distribution plot, but we add some extra analytics here. Here we go into metric level. Here every dot is a game by Arsenal. And a pitch visual, which shows you here where Arsenal recovered the ball. Again, you can hover over it, see like the time and how much danger they created after winning the ball. And lastly, how well they performed in it by each time interval in the game. But yes, I'll let this do as a demo of the app itself and get back to the presentation, because before I end, I want to just show you a bit behind the curtains. So what happens when you're selecting the different analysts, looking into the different players, and so on and so forth. So in the case where we selected Andreas Pereira, the user selects him. The first thing that happens is we fetch the data relevant to the question. So we get all midfielders in the Premier League to create the visuals, to create the text. We get the data, we manipulate it to get it to the right format, which is some kind of a data frame. And we do two things. Firstly, we visualize the data. We do that using Plotly. So all the plots you saw there, these nice interactive plots, are all just created using the standard libraries in Plotly. And the second thing would be creating the text, which is a bit more complicated step, which I'm not going to dive into in details. But what happens there is we take the data frame, we translate it into some boring text using just algorithms in Python. Then we enrich this text with some contextual information and examples about how we would like to summarize the text to make it more interesting to the user. We feed all of these into Azure's OpenAI API, and we use the GPT-4o model to output a summary of the visual. So to get it all together, we just output the visual with the text, show it to the user, and we do this over and over again for each of the steps we did. Whether it's for scouting, if it's for a maths analysis season, they go through these steps to get some nice analytics. So yes, that's it from me today. I was really glad to be able to show you our app, and I hope it inspires you of doing some analytics and creating some nice interactive platforms utilizing Plotly, and even, if ambitious, adding some text to it with large language models. So that's it from me.
Thank you for sharing today, Ágúst. It's impressive to see the entire community 12 Football has built around this app. We didn't have a chance to go deeper today, so please reach out to Ágúst on the LinkedIn if you have any questions. That's all the time we have left today, so let's wrap up with a few quick reminders before our swag drop. Streamlit wouldn't be what it is today without such an active community. There are lots of ways to get involved. Specifically, if you haven't already, join and share your creations in our forum. Your app could be featured in the next showcase. Meet up with us in person at events around the world. We're looking for ambassadors who can help us organize in their area. Or if you're super knowledgeable about Streamlit and want to help us shape its future, apply to become a creator. Finally, thank you for joining us today. And now the moment has arrived for your chance to win swag. Please share your feedback in this survey, bit.ly/showcase-survey-July24. 3 random winners will receive swag. There are some eligibility rules from our legal team. So to enter, please share your email in the survey. And that's a wrap. Thank you all for coming today, and very big thank you to our community advocates, Josh, Pierre, and Ágúst, for sharing today. I know I speak for the product team as well by saying thank you for being such an active and generous community. We hope to see you in the forum and the next showcase. And as always, happy streamliting.